straight year. They're AFC West Division champs, but a whole lot undecided in this thing. But I want to go back to what happened last Thursday night. And let me do, before we do that, instead of doing poll questions like Buck usually does on his show, we want to invite you to answer some poll questions that we have as a part of the show. And you can call the Mark Spain Real Estate Hotline at 615-737-1045 with your opinions on this. And so here's the poll question we're going to do via phones today. With the way the Titans had the win over San Francisco last Thursday night in terms of finishing the regular season, not the playoffs, can they run the table? Can they go 2-0 now in the last 2 weeks of the season? Or do you need to see more from Miami tonight, who is playing the New Orleans Saints? Also, with what Houston did to the Chargers yesterday, is that not as sure a thing as it may have once been in your mind, and knowing that they have already beaten the Titans once? And then we got some sidebar questions, too. Who's the team that's getting hot right now that could make a run? Is there any team that you can say that about in the AFC as wide open as it is? And maybe who is the team you wouldn't want to play right now? And I'll give you my answers on that very soon. But I want to go back to what happened to last Thursday night on Thursday Night Football, talking wide receiver here about a wide receiver. So A.J. Brown, we saw return to practice, return to this. Next thing you know, Thursday night, he's back to the active roster. And my goodness, did he show up in big fashion. 16 targets, 11 catches, 145 yards, and a touchdown. And this is an amazing stat that I saw Jim Wyatt had. 8 of his 11 catches were on third down, 6 of which resulted in first downs. He's the first player since 1978 to produce 8 or more catches on third down in a single game.
Really?
So when you think about when Joe Montana needed Jerry Rice, he was there. When Aaron Rodgers needs Devontae Adams, he's there. This guy, first of all, we know how special a player he is. But to me, I think he went towards rock stardom last Thursday night because it was the only game on television. And he came back in a big, big way for his quarterback. What did the wide receiver, Kevin Dyson, think about wide receiver A.J. Brown?
Well, the first thing you said on there was 16 targets. You got him involved early and often, and they found ways to keep him in the rhythm of the game. Utilize his skill set. Even with all the substituting they were doing, you can tell they were trying to manage the injuries between him and Julio Jones, and they were playing other guys in different roles. But when push came to shove, when it came down to it, he was out there. He was going to be out there. He was a key component. And I think he was, and if you look at Tannehill and even some of the throws he's made up until this past Thursday night, the jump ball per se, the 50-50 ball he threw to A.J. Brown, he came down with, he has done that up until this week and he's been a turnover. And see, there's a level of trust that he has with A.J. Brown that is not replicated with the others just yet. And even more so, speaking specifically with Julio Jones. So to me, that was, let me exhale from a Tannehill's perspective. I got my guy. I can go ahead and unleash my arm a little bit, and I got a guy I'm confident in. Now we just got to see him get that rapport with the rest of the cast as he has with A.J. Brown if they're going to make a run in these playoffs.
I'm glad you brought that up because when we come back on the other side, I want to give some examples of exactly what you're talking about. Just from the 4 days before that in Pittsburgh where you didn't see A.J. Brown in the game and this is no knock to the other guys playing wide out. Look, it is what it is. Mm-hmm. But the difference in the situations could have been a difference maybe in the score of that ball game and maybe another win in their pocket before they even played the 49ers. We got lots to talk about over the next couple of 3 hours. We want you to be involved if you want to. 615-737-1045. That's the Mark Spain Real Estate Hotline. This is the Buck Reising Show with the Miracle Man, Kevin Dyson, and yours truly, Rhett Bryan, filling in today on 1045 The Zone. It's the Buck Reising Show, 104.5 The Zone, the home for Titans football. Rhett Bryan of Titans Radio with Dr. Kevin Dyson filling in for Buck today. Brett Batchelor making everything work behind the glass for us. Appreciate him today. And we invite you to come along for the ride if you want. 615-737-1045. That's the Mark Spain Real Estate Hotline. And so we were talking about A.J. Brown's performance last Thursday night. 16 targets, 11 catches, 145, and a touchdown. But 8 of the 11 were on third down. 6 of those resulted in first downs. He's the first player since 1978 to produce 8 or more catches on third down in a single game. And you, Kevin, were talking in the first segment about the difference in seeing him there and not only the trust factor with Ryan Tannehill, but just knowing your guy's going to go up and go get it. And you made me think about a week ago in Pittsburgh. Mm-hmm. And again, this is no slight towards the wide receivers that have been playing. Look, Cody Hollister, Nick Westbrook-Akina, all those guys, they busted their rear ends.
Yeah.
And injuries and things have created opportunities for them, and they've seized them in a lot of places. But I think about there was a deep shot in that Pittsburgh game that Tannehill took downfield. And it was Cody Hollister into double coverage. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking, if that's A.J. Brown, he comes down with that ball 99 times out of 100.
Yeah.
And then you've got a red zone opportunity right there, first and goal.
Yeah, there was a drop ball earlier in the game. That same game that
Westbrook-Akina.
Yeah. That you think he comes down with that. And again, like you said, that's not taking anything away from the other guys. They're good football players.
Absolutely.
But AJ's different for a reason. He's a playmaker. He's got strong hands, good feet, good quickness, big body. And I've said it last few years. I don't know who else. You name me a couple, but if there is, he's definitely a top 2 or 3 run after the catch in the National Football League when you talk about wide receivers. His ability to make big plays after catching the football is dang near second to none. I'm still trying to think right now as we're talking who is better than him at that. So it's just a different level of confidence for your quarterback to have his guys out there. And I'm not saying that the other guys are not his guys, but A.J. Brown and him have been through a lot. That's who he built his resurrected his career with, was A.J. Brown, if you will, when he came in from Miami.
That's right.
That's who he resurrected his career with. And not to have him or Derrick Henry, the safety blanket behind you, and a lot of pressure went on him, I got to believe that alleviated some of that pressure off of him to have that. That's why you saw him relying on him so much. And the play calling dictate a little bit of that as well. But that's, to me, what was the level of comfort that Tannehill had. It was like a sigh of relief that he was able to unleash on Thursday. And so we'll just see how they progress from now. You everybody, from what I understand, is unscathed. They're going to be ready to go next week. Just monitoring their legs and their health. We know how the hamstring and things of that nature work.
That's right.
And we'll see how they progress along. Hopefully they get everybody involved, because once they get everybody involved, man, the sky's the limit. And we just don't know until we see with Derrick Henry if he's going to be able to get back. And if he is, they could be problems in the playoffs, potentially.
It's interesting you say that about Derrick Henry, too, because Tom Pelissero had reports either yesterday or today saying a couple things, Titans related. One, that everyone he talks to, Mike Vrabel is the coach of the year. And I think he should be, just based on there's been, with the players that were in on Thursday night because of the offensive line issues, I think the number's now at 89 different players on the roster this year, and they're 10-5. People wants to talk about John Harbaugh in Baltimore. Yeah, they've had injury. Nobody else is. This is a new record.
Yeah,
I think just based on those things and that kind of record and who they've beaten, I think I'd cast my vote for him.
You don't think Belichick's going to get the nod?
Depends on how they finish. Because now, he could get the nod, but they spent $166 million in guaranteed money the first week of free agency. Now, it's panned out. Matthew Judon, those guys. Hey, listen, they never spent that kind of money in New England before.
Yeah. What about the guy in Miami? Turn that thing around too.
Yeah. And that's you bring up another point with Miami. And we'll talk about this as we get through Buck's show today. But here come the Dolphins this weekend. And, of course, the question I threw out at the top of the show, Do you think, with the way that the Titans won over San Francisco last Thursday night, in terms of finishing the regular season, do you think they can run the table? In other words, go 2-0, beat Miami, beat the Houston Texans. Miami takes on the New Orleans Saints tonight on Monday Night Football. Miami is the second hottest team in the league behind the Kansas City Chiefs. They started 1-7. They've reeled off 6 wins. They're 7-7 under Todd Bowles. And you know what's crazy is Tua Tagovailoa has been a huge part of that. He leads the NFL in completion percentage right now with quarterbacks, ahead of Kyler Murray.
Yeah.
So the last time that the Titans faced the Dolphins was the first week of the 2018 season, September the 9th, and that was Mike Vrabel's first game as head coach of the Titans, and that was the 2 lightning delays, 2 hours. 7 hours, 8 minutes later.
Longest game in NFL history.
That's correct.
God, that was a long night.
The Titans lost that one 27-20, and we'll go through all of that here probably in the 11 o'clock hour with all the things that happened in that game. But the big thing is, this is what the national people, I'm sure, will run with in the headline this week, is that it's Tannehill's first time facing his old team, because Tannehill was the quarterback of the Dolphins at that particular time. And what a way for Coach Vrabel to get baptized as his first game as a head coach. Of course, he handled it well. But yeah, so that's the question today. If you want to jump in, 615-737-1045. Can the Titans run the table on the regular season? Can they beat Miami and beat the Houston Texans in Week 18 to finish with 12 wins on the season? And, of course, we know what that means because, the Titans win Sunday. They win the AFC South Division for consecutive years. They've never done that before since the AFC South Division was created in 2002. And then there's some other things that could happen. I mean, Cincinnati hosts Kansas City this weekend. Joe Burrow's throwing it everywhere. If they somehow beat Kansas City in Cincy, then the Titans have the number 1 seed with the last week in the regular season remaining.
That's a tough out for KC. Not the Dolphins. Here's the thing with the Dolphins. Once your quarterback gets in the rhythm and your coordinator gets in the rhythm, as we have seen, it makes them a more efficient offense. Their defense has always been pretty solid, and now the offense is playing, I say catch up, but they're matching that level of play with their defense, and they've gotten into a rhythm. We're seeing it with the Colts. Their offense and their defensive line, and they're playing in the rhythm. So those are two of the 3 hottest teams in the National Football League right now that I don't think very many people want to play right now, especially if they get into the playoffs. They're going to be a tough out for anybody. So this is not an easy game for the Titans. This is a game, the motivation for Tannehill, of course, I'm going back to the team that drafted me, the team that let me go, who didn't think enough of me. There's the motivation for him, right? He's going to downplay it as he should. He's going to downplay it. It doesn't mean that's just another game. We need to win this game as a team, get to the playoff. As he should. He should speak all this stuff. But internally, I guarantee
he's on fire.
He's on fire. He wants to perform well. He wants to let them know what they're missing, why I should, you know what I mean? There's that, It's just that competitor. That's the athlete in you. That's what he wants to do. But the motivation for the Titans is this is a must-win game, as you said, to solidify the South and stay in line to get that home field advantage throughout the playoffs, make sure the playoffs come through Nashville. And with the head-to-head with KC, who would have thought how important that game would have been back then? It was an important game back then, but how much more important is it now, considering all the variables that could take place?
And considering how the AFC is right now, which is wide open, how I just think the number 1 seed is even more important than ever, considering, you're the only one that gets a bye.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much to be sorted out, and it may come down to the last week in a lot of cases in some of the other divisions. I think the Titans can handle their business. Now, listen, they can't turn the ball over like they did 13 times in 3 games. They won the turnover battle the other night. Look at the result.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, and when you think about it, man, the 2 teams, and you could throw maybe New England in there if both the Titans and the Chiefs slip up badly in the last 2 weeks. But you don't want to go through Kansas City.
Nope.
Or Foxborough.
Nope.
And as cold as they get in the wintertime, and you got to adjust it. You want to win these 2.
100%.
Cincinnati, do your job.
That's right. Come on, Joe Burrow.
Hey, they
Threw
still
for
fighting for the
500
division.
yards yesterday.
Yeah.
Golly.
They still fighting for the division. So
that's right. They got plenty to play for.
Plenty to play for.
Yeah. All right, let's go to the phone. 615-737-1045. Is this Mag Honey? Is that what you said this person's name is? Mahogany?
Mahogany. It's Mahogany. How y'all doing this morning?
Hey,
What's
great.
going
How
on,
are you,
man?
Mahogany?
Doing well. Hopefully y'all had a wonderful holiday, and I'm just glad that I'm able to listen to the station with so many smart people on it, because I agree with things that both of you said. And I think that to answer your poll question, I think the Titans will run the table the rest of the season and win out. And as to what Dr. Smooth, Dr. Kevin Dyson said, I do believe that Tannehill is going to be motivated for this game against Miami. And I think he's going to play with a little extra fervor in this game, to give us that W. And I know that those guys are probably still mad as all get out about losing to the Texans a few weeks ago. So I think they're going to be extra motivated for that game. And then I think the feeling across Nashville is that Henry is going to be playing in that Texans game and knocking off the rust and everything like that. I think we can win out. And I think Cincinnati's going to beat Kansas City this week, so we'll get the number 1 seed. Appreciate y'all. Y'all have a good day, and we'll talk with you later.
Hey,
Thank you,
man.
Mahogany.
Happy New
Appreciate
Year,
it.
man.
Happy New Year to you.
I like it. I like that call. The Texan game. You think about that. That's a game that forget the Jets. That's another one.
Right.
But the Texan game, nobody saw that. How critical is that game? You always, every year, you look back on the would've, the could'ves, and the should'ves, and you go back, man, if we just beat this team, we'd have been here, or we'd have made the playoffs, or we'd have had home. And that game right there, at home, against a team with a struggling team, I get it's divisional rival, but that was a game that escapes you. 11-4 right now, being the number 1 seed, the pressure is a little bit less. And not every week's pressure, but it's a little bit less going into this week with Miami.
Well, let me say this. And you said it about Ryan Tannehill. I feel like those guys in that locker room over at St. Thomas Sports Park, inside they're on fire for that game. Now they gotta take care of business against Miami, but I think when the calendar clicks over to next week and 2022 comes into play and it's going to Houston, I think they're going to be dialed in, ready to go, because they know they want that one back. But look at what Houston did to the Chargers yesterday.
I know, man.
Now Houston is littered with COVID issues. They had 16 guys out, a lot of them starters, and they took the Chargers to the woodshed, 41-29. Now I know that Justin Herbert threw 2 interceptions in that ball game.
Yeah.
One was a pick six, and that was a team that I thought was going to be one of the surprise teams of 2021 was the Chargers because of the schedule that they had. I really like Justin Herbert as the quarterback, but they've had some issues as of late. But maybe the Houston proposition isn't as easy in Week 18. We'll see what it's like, when they get through their next game this weekend. But I'm with you. I think they should be able to go 2-0 in this if they handle their business. They can't turn the doggone ball over.
Well, and I think points. I was on 3HL last Thursday, right before the pregame, and we said, can the Titans score 20? And if they score 30, they win this game. Well, they hit that number right on the nose.
Yeah.
Because offensively, they hadn't shown that.
Right.
Defensively has played very well. The amount of points per game against that the Titans have had in the past month of the season, you wouldn't suggest a team that's playing 500 ball. You would think that team was running the table because their defense is playing so well. Well, conversely, the offense hasn't been productive as far as points is concerned. They've run the football very well, rushed well over 200 yards twice in the last month.
Without Derrick Henry.
So they've done some things productively. They just hadn't scored points, got in the red zone, hadn't put it touchdowns. And after a while, that stuff adds up, as we saw against the Steelers. You could have put that team away early, and then you get into that rut where you go 3 turnovers in 10 plays. Any NFL team, even though they were struggling to score points, but they still, touchdowns, I should say, but they still got enough to win that game, and the Titans never overcame that. And
Titans go up 17-0 in that game at Pittsburgh. It's over.
It's over. Even though they were a strong second-half team.
But that was the difference.
Absolutely.
100%. And you're right. That's what the Titans offense has to fix going forward as they get into this last couple of weeks of the regular season and certainly getting into postseason play, they've got to get the points on the offense back up. If the defense keeps doing what it's doing and they can get up to 27 points a game even, they can hang with a lot of people.
I want to see the stats, and I haven't looked at it and I haven't asked about it. I remember the first couple of years Tannehill being here, they were one of the most efficient red zone scoring touchdown teams in the National Football League.
Yeah, they were like 70-something% in the red zone.
You're right.
Yeah, it was ridiculous.
Where are they at this year on that? And that
off the top of my head, I don't know, but it's nowhere near that number.
It's nowhere near that. That's why I'm thinking, why has not Julio not been involved in that? He's made a career out of jump balls and bodying people, and you know what I mean?
Knows the route tree like the back of his hand.
Yeah,
sure.
So that's why I think got to get more efficient in the red zone. Touchdowns are going to be critical. You can't play a field goal game against anybody that's in this playoff race. Even the Chargers, a good football team with a good quarterback, can score a lot of points in this league. And this is an offensive league. You have to put up touchdowns more often than not. Them field goals will get you at some point. They'll get you.
We don't need to rely on Randy Bullock every week. Let's go back to the phones here.
No disrespect to Bullock.
That's right. 615-737-1045. Bam! What's up, man? You're on with Dr. Dyson.
Yo, what's up, Rhett? What's up, Cam? How you feeling, sir?
Doing well. How you doing, brother?
Man, I'm hanging, shaking, and baking, man. You know how I go, man. So, I think the Titans can definitely run the table. I would say this, though. I'm going to say it's going to depend on how the offense starts. And a lot of that has to do with Todd Downing and what he's calling. If they come out slinging the ball a little bit quicker and actually moving the ball down the field, I think we can actually be a little bit more productive. We have to stop this first 3 and out, not really getting first downs and stuff like that. Like, we got to play lights out, man. We have to be able to move the ball. We have to be able to find ways to get Julio involved some kind of way. I'm not understanding what – I do understand, but I feel like there's some things that we can do to kind of get him, get him involved and get his reps up differently. Everybody ain't going to just beat Julio Jones like that, man. I don't really know if they're using him as a decoy or whatever, but at the same time, I just feel like it's certain things. But again, I feel like it all goes back to Todd Downing. In my honest opinion, I don't feel like Todd Downing and Ryan Tannehill on the same sheet of music. Not like Arthur Smith and Ryan Tannehill was.
Agreed.
So, you can just kind of look at that relationship and just tell it's still kind of some dings and dangs that need to come out of there. He could be a ding dong at times, but I think we can run the table. I think if Henry comes back and we kind of get our offense the way that it's going, I've pretty much given up on the whole Golden Tate thing because that seems like it's a But I think with the offense that we have, I think a lot of people will be scared to play us. I'm not scared to play the Colts again with a fresh Derrick Henry and the defense, the way the defense been playing. A lot of people, our defense can hang with anybody in the world, man. The boys, Bud and Jeff, they playing lights out. So I feel like we got a chance to do what we need to do and how we need to do it, and just kind of run the table however we need to do it. If I'm wrong about something, you can definitely let me know, Rick.
Bam, appreciate the call, man. Thank you.
One thing he said, the being on the same accord as your coordinator and your quarterback. If you remember, about 4 or 5 years ago, when we were talking about Mariota and all the different head coaches, all the different coordinators, and how he was inconsistent and how that is, there is a transition period.
Sure. With
new coordinators. And expectations a little different, philosophy different, how they call the game is a little bit different. And Downey's getting to know his guys still in retrospect, and he hasn't had a full deck of cards either now. You know what I mean? He had the keys to the Maserati with Derrick Henry, and Derrick Henry was on his way to 2,000 yards again.
Yep.
And when whatever reason that car broke down,
went to the shop for a few weeks.
You went to now you got to figure out. You had to reassess, readjust, rethink your game plan,
recalibrate a little bit.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we haven't seen the greatness in that just yet. We've seen glimpses of it, but we haven't seen the greatness of it yet. Now the running game still looks stellar, and we've had some pass protection issues and things of that nature, but that is where I like what he said, getting on the same accord as his quarterback sometimes and not relying just on King Henry to break the big one.
Let me ask you this before we go to break here. And let's just say let's just be ultra positive here, and that the reports that are floating out there are right, and that Derrick Henry comes back for Week 18 in Houston to knock some rust off to get ready for a playoff run. Does all of those things start to line up a little more because you got the big guy back there now? And we knowing how well that Ryan Tannehill has done off of play action passes and those things with him back there.
Well, it's like
I'm not saying it's the cure all,
right?
But
it's like this. If he's back there, that threat is there, regardless of how he is, because you don't know how healthy he is. But I have to respect him as the guy on the other side calling against him. Because he's such a dominant player, I have to respect the fact that he's in the lineup, which in essence will open up things anyway, regardless of how well he's playing,
right.
how healthy he is. It's the fact that he's out there.
It's the unknown as to whether he's going to break the home run or not.
I have to respect it. I have to bring the other guy down the box. I have to create the matchups on the outside because of his ability to make big plays in the run game. And so that alone is going to change the dynamic of this offense. I mean, there's not other than a guy in Indianapolis. Name another dominant running back right now.
There's not one.
There's not one.
No, it's running back by committee, and there's some nice ones in nice places. But yeah, there's nothing like 22, and there's nothing like Jonathan Taylor. That's right. All right, we're gonna go hit a break right here. John in Franklin, Reagan in Nashville, hang tight. Thanks for your participation. You can call and jump in if you want to, 615-737-1045. The Buck Reising Show with Rhett Bryan and Kevin Dyson continues next here on 1045 The Zone. Welcome back. It's the Buck Rising Show on 104.5 The Zone. I am not Buck Rising, Rhett Bryan from Titans Radio, joined by the doctor, the miracle man, Kevin Dyson. All these years I've known Kevin, never done radio with him till today. So, hey, it's the first time for everything. We are going to get back to the phone calls real quick because we're going to take a short segment here, and we're going to try to line things up so we can talk, hear the Mike Vrabel press conference straight up at 11 o'clock. So we will kind of want to hear what he's got going into this week against Miami. Week 17 of the NFL kicks off for the Titans this Sunday as they host the Dolphins. Titans countdown at 11, kickoff at 12:02, but all begins here with Buck and the Lee Company countdown to kick off at 9 a.m. Let's go back to the phones here. John in Franklin, you're on with Dr. Kevin Dyson. What's up?
What's going on, guys? Appreciate you taking my call, and thank you for working today.
Sure.
Yeah, appreciate
Glad to
it,
do it.
Dyson, I want to say, man, I have in my man cave upstairs, Music City Miracle picture of you. It's signed. I didn't get it signed by you, but I had it purchased, so it's one of my favorite items in my man cave.
Oh, man, I appreciate that, man. I was going to say I'd sign it for you if you just bring it to me.
I did get your autograph at a Kroger years ago, so I will say that.
Okay.
But anyways, I was going to say, with the question of the polls being, can we go 2-0? The homer in me, obviously, I think we can go 2-0.
Yeah.
But also the realist of me on the side is I'm worried a little bit about the Miami game because even though they are coming off of a short week playing tonight, if they win tonight against New Orleans, who's playing that, Ian Book, that starting quarterback for New Orleans?
That's right.
If they win there, then they have a small chance to make the playoffs. So they're going to be hungry when they come to Nashville. Also, too, apparently the conditions on Sunday don't look too promising at the moment. It looks like it might be another Houston Texan weather game what we have coming up with the Dolphins possibly. That has me worried a little bit about possibly going 1-1, but obviously the homer and me wants to go 2-0 with our defense. Finally, seems like you're getting it together, and then hopefully with D. Henry coming back, we'll be in good shape. But
John, great call.
Great
You bring
call.
up some excellent points. Appreciate you calling.
I think we all got a little homer in us.
Well, sure. But
seriously.
he bring up great. I haven't looked at the forecast, but I know we're supposed to get about 3 different weather fronts coming in this week, one after the other.
I was just looking at that.
Yeah. And
That's
so
crazy.
not like, hopefully, no tornadic based on what happened in West Tennessee and Kentucky in the last couple of weeks, but winds, rain, those kinds of things. And I haven't looked at Sunday just because it could change 50 times between now and then. But he brings up a valid point about that. And then I forgot, New Orleans is starting Ian Book from Notre Dame at quarterback because Taysom Hill's in COVID protocol. And we know what else they've got going on with the other quarterbacks. But I'd forgotten about Ian Book. That's interesting. Let's go quickly to Reagan in Nashville. Go ahead, sir. What you got for Dr. Kevin Dyson?
Hey, guys. Hope you're having a great day so far.
We are. Thanks to you. Appreciate you calling.
I was going to ask about the NFC playoff picture. Who you think is going to take the last 2 spots, and overall, who's going to make it out of the NFC, and who's going to be the 1 seed and all that? You got a prediction on that yourself before? I like the Cowboys. I like the Cowboys. They did really good last night. So.
Yeah, they handled Washington big time.
Is he talking about who's
So
going
you're
to
talking about who the other seeds are now that Tampa Bay and Dallas are kind of locked up in the other divisions?
Yes, sir.
All right. Appreciate the call, Reagan.
Well, one team you just mentioned was New Orleans. I don't know now. That's going to be rough on them.
Yeah, they would be vying, I guess, for a wild card, right?
Yeah. Eagles looked pretty good yesterday. San Fran has been playing well. They just ran into a Titan defense in a short week coming across the country. In their quarterback, again, as we talked about earlier, can't turn the ball over. He gives himself a chance to win because their quarterback turned the ball over against the Titans, and the Titans took advantage of it.
Right.
And
the
then
Cowboys are going to win the NFC East, and they
Right.
have. That's done.
That's done. The
It
Vikings.
looks like the Rams are going to win the NFC West.
Oh, yeah.
Because the Cardinals have the wheels have fallen off there. Green Bay's going to win the NFC North. Tampa's won the NFC South. And then so now we're talking about wild cards. I feel like that's how this is going to be set. So I guess the Cardinals record-wise would be a wild card.
Oh, they're pretty much in there because they got a 2-game lead on the rest of them.
Right.
San Fran, I think, I don't know who they have left, but they'll be right there.
Mm-hmm.
Philly, I mean, they look good yesterday.
Yep.
New Orleans, it's a big week for them. And
That's right.
Minnesota, they've been up and down this year. And now look who also is in that mix, Atlanta. You said that earlier in the year where Atlanta looked.
Arthur Smith's had a nice year with them.
You talk about coach of the year candidates now, 8-8 or 9-7, whatever, or 9-8 might be. If they win his last two, I don't know if that wins get you coach of the year, but he's done a great job.
He's done a fantastic job with the cupboard was not really. It wasn't bare, but it wasn't full of food with the way Dan Quinn left that thing. No, Arthur Smith has done a fantastic job in Atlanta.
Yeah. So I'm going to say, right before we go on break, my last two teams in would be San Fran and Philly.
I think I wouldn't disagree with that. I like that. Hey, Dr. Kevin Dyson is here. I'm Rhett Bryan. We're filling in for Buck Reising. We're going to take a little bit early sneak to the break here. We want to see if we can talk to head coach Mike Vrabel, his press conference at the top of the hour, when the Buck Reising Show continues on the home for the Titans, 104.5 The Zone.
Good morning. I'm Jonathan Shea for the Tennessee Titans, currently the 2nd seed in the AFC. We'll be tapping into Mike Vrabel's press conference coming up here momentarily on The Zone. The team ahead of them, the number 1 seed, the Kansas City Chiefs, just cruised past the Pittsburgh Steelers 36-10 yesterday to win their 8th straight game, clinched their 6th straight AFC West title. Titans didn't get all the presents they wanted on Christmas night. The Arizona Cardinals lost to the Indianapolis Colts 22-16. Colts have won 6 of their last 7, 8 of their last 10. They remain 1 game behind the Titans in the AFC South with 2 games remaining while the Titans hold the head-to-head tiebreaker. Meanwhile, the Buffalo Bills defeated the New England Patriots 33-21. The Bills and Pats tied atop the AFC East. That win by the Bills allowed the Titans to be in sole possession of 2nd place in the conference. The Titans' next opponent, the Miami Dolphins, playing tonight at New Orleans against Ian Book and the Saints. Kickoff set for 7:15. You can hear the game here on The Zone following the Mike Vrabel Show. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and the Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Buck Reising Show, 104.5 The Zone. Buck taking a much-deserved day off. Rhett Bryan from Titans Radio in for him, along with Dr. Kevin Dyson. Glad to see him in here today as we are working through a Monday after Christmas, heading into the New Year's. And we're going to tap into Mike Vrabel's press conference at St. Thomas Sports Park. Brett, let me know when he is going. Is he? All right. So as soon as he heads to not necessarily the podium, probably Zoom, I guess, we will see what he has in his line of thought getting into another game week 17 for the Titans as they host the Miami Dolphins Sunday at Nissan Stadium to bring in the new year. And Miami, like we said before, Kansas City's had a hot streak. Well, so has the Miami Dolphins. Rode off, they rolled off 6 straight wins. They're 7-7 under Todd Bowles. Tua Tagovailoa has really been a big part of that. Their defense has done a nice job. While we're waiting on Mike Vrabel here, Ian Rappaport tweeted out just a little while ago, more COVID issues for the Colts. Safety Jaleel Adai, cornerback T.J. Carey, linebacker Malik Jefferson, and running back Marlon Mack. Also tackle Braden Smith on the reserve COVID-19 list. So it's really running its course through the Colts right now. And they host the Las Vegas Raiders at Lucas Oil Stadium on Sunday.
Another team vying for that playoff position.
Yeah.
Golly. The AFC and the balance of the AFC, there's no true dominant team. I know we want to believe that the Kansas City Chiefs are the most dominant in the AFC, if you will, because they're hot right now.
Yep.
But we've seen other teams with similar streaks. New England streak just ended. Titans had a streak in the middle of the season. KC's in the midst of a streak. It's a balanced league in AFC. I don't think you can call it right now. The money's going to be towards KC, as it probably should. They're defending AFC champs and all that, and they got Mahomes and all that, and that, rightfully so. But we've seen them. We've seen teams like the Titans dominate them.
Yes.
Who match up well against them.
That's right.
So it's a balanced league. It's in the AFC, that is.
And here's one of the candidates for the Coach of the Year, Mike Vrabel, addressing the media. Let's check in with him live.
We can improve, use this couple extra days to, get healthy, to do a little bit of work today, to, condition and to work out and to meet, and then start our preparation on Miami.
Buck?
Yeah, Mike, with Miami, what's kind of stood out about the way that they've turned their season around after 7 straight losses and now 7 straight wins?
Well, I think that in these last couple games, when they've won, that starting with the Houston game, but they've taken care of the football. They've created a bunch of turnovers during that stretch, and I know that they went back and forth with Houston in the one game that they had to start this streak, and I know Brian, and I know the consistency in which he preaches, and It looks like that's obviously starting to pay off now. They're not opposed to playing close games, very multiple, both sides of the football. So it'll be like it always is for us, trying to take care of the football. They've caused probably 12 or 13 turnovers the last 6 weeks.
Jim Watt.
Hey, Mike, I've got a question on Bud Dupree. Just how much of a difference he makes when he's in there? What have you seen from him since he's been back last couple of games?
He's factored in some plays, and I think that there's a lot of things that he's going to have to continue to improve on. Bud's missed a lot of individual time, and I believe and know that that's critical. And but he's playing with a speed, and he's chasing, and hopefully he can continue to help us and learn and study the opponent each week.
Terry?
Mike, what has Tua been doing? I think he has the highest completion percentage of any quarterback in the league. What's he been doing to accomplish that? And is there any difference that any adjustments you have to make when you face a left-handed quarterback that, as opposed to seeing right-handers all the time?
I think you'll have to, probably on some of the RPOs where they're going with it, or some of the throws that normally a right-handed quarterback would make, that they're trying to maybe do things, a little differently. His accuracy has come down to him being very decisive with the football, getting it out of his hand, but being, knowing where he wants to go with it. As far as, the left-handed quarterback, you may, there's going to be a change as far as matching the hand, and what we try to teach with the pass rushers or those guys that are blitzing, is trying to be good, matching the quarterback's throwing hand. That will be certainly something that we'll have to practice.
Paul?
Hey, Mike, sorry about that Military Bowl. How much do you credit Shane with the way he's evolved this year, maybe with additional responsibilities for all of the things that have gotten better with the defense?
I think it's like it always is, Paul. It's a group effort. It's the coaching that comes together with a common goal, that when they leave that room, everybody is on board to teach the same things and install the same things. I think that it is a testament to the players, like it always is. But I think that each week we try to do everything we can to give our players a great opportunity to know what to do going into the game. And I like the way that the staff is working together, and Shane coordinates all that.
Teron?
Hey, what's up, Coach? Todd Downing, he had said a couple weeks ago that the numbers don't necessarily define the season that Ryan Tannehill has had. So my question to you is, A, do you agree with that? And B, in what way can you define the season that he's had so far?
Well, I think that our focus is on the Dolphins. I love Ryan. I love who he is. I love his toughness. I think we can all look back to Thursday night and see that when there's a clean pocket, he made some really good throws. And, it starts there. It starts in protection. It starts in giving him a pocket to stand in and step up and deliver passes. I think that was evident. So it is a group effort. There's some things that Ryan has to improve on, and that we're going to continue to coach him on. But his toughness is second to none. I know that being a professional quarterback it requires a level of toughness, and I'm not going to say that other guys aren't tough, but I know that Ryan has a very high ability to stand in there and not flinch, and when he takes off and runs, he helps us out.
Corey?
Mike, you got another good tight end you're going to face this week in Gesicki, but you've been really strong against Kittle and Kelsey this year. What's been your key to limiting those guys so far?
Corey, if that's a jinx, I'm going to be done with you, Corey. If that's a jinx.
You wouldn't be the first.
I actually have gone, Mike, we recruited when I was at Ohio State. I remember going and seeing him in college, or excuse me, in high school. And, I know that he's battled through some injuries. And he's really turned into a really nice player, very athletic, very long. And, sometimes these tight ends are all different. And he runs the entire route tree. And he's very, very fluid mover, very easy mover. His catch radius is probably the second to none in the NFL as far as, some of these passes that look like they're going to be overthrown. He continues to run or take another step and reach up and make a play. Seems like he's got a very good relationship with the quarterbacks, and they trust him. So as far as defending him, I think that will, always change based on the call or basic, what we're going to do as far as a game plan. But he has certainly, been a very good target for him.
Buck?
Yeah, to that end, Mike, how well, when Dane Cruikshank's been able to be out there, how well has he done with the tight ends?
He has really accepted that challenge, and it's always good to see guys when you give them a role, and it's might seem like a small role or a role on third down, but he has done well. I'm sure that when those things happen, that Dane will get more opportunities. I think that one of his better plays in the game was when they ran it on third down in the fringe area. That Dane came over, read it, tracked his guy, and really made a great tackle, a good physical tackle. He stayed on his feet, wrapped up, ran his feet on contact, and showed the team that this morning as an example of how we want to tackle. And I know that Dane had been working on some of those things.
Teresa?
Mike, yesterday was the first day since I think last Tuesday you didn't put an offensive lineman on the reserve COVID list. How is that group looking at this moment, and with the new protocols, any chance that any of those linemen could be back on Sunday?
We're dealing with it like everybody else is, Teresa, trying to do what's best for the player and make sure that their health and safety is monitored and taken care of, and that their family's health and safety is taken care of. And I would say that, we're hopeful that we get some of those guys back.
Corey?
Mike, I know it seemed like forever for the bye to get here, but having the bye this late, followed now by the mini bye with 2 weeks to go, in a way, is it going to be beneficial for you heading into January?
Well, only if we take advantage of it, Corey. Only if we take advantage of it and can use the extra time to get rest, to make sure that we're sleeping, that our nutrition is on point, that our conditioning is on point. We have some guys that have been out, and that we're as we get them back, that their conditioning is at a level that we expect it to be, to allow them to play with the effort and finish that's expected of our football team. So I hope that it can be an advantage. I hope that it can help us if we take advantage and we do the right things.
Terry?
Mike, when you play a team that's playing on a Monday night like the Dolphins are tonight, do you take the time and watch that game, or do you just wait and dissect the coach's tape?
All right, there's Mike Vrabel as he is addressing the media at St. Thomas Sports Park as they prepare for the Miami Dolphins this weekend. Of course, 104.5 The Zone will get you set all week long. When we come back, we'll kind of peek through a couple of things that Mike Vrabel said and continue to take your questions and phone calls. Poll question, can the Titans run the table to finish the regular season? In other words, go 2-0 and beat the Miami Dolphins and the Houston Texans in back-to-back weeks. We'll take your phone calls, and we'll talk Titans and anything else you want. 615-737-1045. I'm Rhett Bryan, filling in for Buck Reising with Dr. Kevin Dyson. We'll be back on 104.5 The Zone next. Moving through hour 2 of the Buck Reising Show on 104.5 The Zone. I'm Rhett Bryan from Titans Radio, filling in for Buck with Dr. Smooth, Kevin Dyson. Taking your phone calls and questions, 615-737-1045. Alex in Dixon has been patiently waiting all this time. Alex, you're on with Dr. Kevin Dyson. What you got for us?
What's up, guys? Hope you guys are doing well. I just really want to touch on the last 2 games. I feel pretty confident that we'll win those last 2. I think the team and Tannehill are going to be pretty motivated on Tannehill's behalf to get him that win at his old team. And I think they're going to be pretty motivated to beat the Texans and kind of get that off of their plate and off of their shoulders. The only thing that worries me is the Chiefs. I don't know if they're going to lose one of these games. That's the only concern I would have. And lastly, I just want to say, it probably has to be pretty disheartening to be a team that has to play the Titans knowing that they have a fresh Derrick Henry possibly and AJ and Julio and just a well-rounded team. So that's all I got, and tighten up.
All right, tighten up, Alex. Thanks. I like how he's thinking there. And look, we got the Homer heart for sure. We want them to go 2-0 in this last 2 games, and sometimes that's easier said than done. But given the 2 outlines, the team wanting to get this win for Ryan Tannehill and then them wanting to get some payback for Houston in Week 18, I'd like both of those scenarios for sure.
Man, I'll tell you what, potential. It only gets you in the door.
That's right.
You gotta execute. You gotta do all those things. But it's exciting to think about that potential. What's even more exciting, I get the whole Derrick Henry thing, and where the offense has been running the football without him is exceptional. But the way the defense has been playing going into December, now January months, that's how you win and advance in playoff ball. Your defense has to get critical stops, sudden change, not allowing touchdowns, hold them to field goals or nothing, and that's what the Titans defense has done. They have put in guys at different positions. We talked about it off air about the rotation of corners and Fulton and Screen and everybody else stepping up and making play. Jack Rabbit siding last week. I mean,
and at a perfect time,
right? So it's to me the most exciting part is how the defense is starting to gel and mesh, and their report they have with their coordinator and everybody be on the same page. And we talked about just a second ago how they was able to basically bottle up Kittles, one of the best tight ends, if not the best tight end in the game right now. I know Kelsey has a lot to say about that, but Kittles is widely being considered the best overall all-around tight end in the game.
True tight end, blocking tight end, and a catching weapon. Right.
And they bottled him up. So going into this stretch run, the last 2 games into the playoffs, you think about what do you want? Do you want your offense in on cylinders and your defense struggling? Or would you want your offense playing, good football, but your defense hitting on all cylinders? Now, you can beg to differ. You can look at what the Chiefs had a couple of years ago. Their defense was struggling. The Titans was one of those teams. Took a big lead on them, double-digit lead on them, and then their defense settled in, made enough plays, and their offense got hot.
Well, you're speaking from experience because you saw those Titans defenses that Blaine and Samari and Javon, and I mean, they were ridiculous. And how far it got you guys in those playoffs. Mm-hmm. So you know what it takes. And, I'd rather have that and have Derrick Henry coming back with the run game and then let the offense kind of flesh itself out with the rest.
And if you can make plays like we saw with A.J. Brown.
and you can put up points and your defense is doing, you're going to go a ways. You're right.
You got a chance. You got an opportunity. And, again, it's hard not to get excited about the potential. I go back to August, even maybe before August, but specifically August when we were talking about the potential of this offense. Mm-hmm. We weren't really talking about the defense at that time. We were talking about the potential of the offense with Julio Jones coming on board, with A.J. Brown, and, of course, Derrick Henry and Tannehill kind of coming into his own as one of the quote-unquote elite quarterbacks in this league. We were talking about that potential and all the offense and McReynolds and all this guys that we had coming back, right? Mm-hmm. You lose Jonnu and a couple other people, but you thought the potential was there. And then we got the preseason games, and we didn't really get to see much. None of the guys really played. And then the first game, other than Derrick Henry or so, it was okay. You know, a couple plays by A.J. Brown, nothing really from Julio, but it was just okay. And then the injuries kind of started taking over through the season.
Yep.
And we really hadn't seen the full capacity, full weapons arsenal together healthy. And the potential of that is so exciting, especially in late December, early January, when you're talking about making a playoff run. And I think, aside from those teams that are playing really well right now, I think a lot of people look at it and say, man, if Derrick Henry gets there, that team right there could be dangerous. Nobody's going to want to see the Titans, but they had to get on the field and had to produce it. Right now, I would say nobody wants to play the Colts. Nobody wants to play the Colts right now. They're playing top-notch football. Chiefs,
Kansas City and Indy are the two teams that I would not want to play right now.
You know, and if they lose one of their weapons, I don't know if they have the same capacity as the Titans to overcome those things. And that remains to be seen because they haven't had to deal with the adversity, as you mentioned earlier, as the Titans have had to deal with this year.
Well, to your point, the offensive line, the Titans' offensive line, have yet to play 4 quarters of a complete game with all 5 starters together. That's yet to happen.
Right.
And here we are in week 17. That's amazing.
And they're going to win the division.
And they got double-digit wins. I mean, that's nuts when you think about it.
Potentially number 1 seed.
The Mark Spain Real Estate Hotline, 615-737-1045. Kenny, the mailman, you're on with the doctor, Kevin Dyson. What's up?
Greetings, fellas. How are y'all doing?
Good.
Right.
Excellent. You were talking earlier how the season is going to wind up in the last games, and we have our hopes and wishes, but we really don't know how it's going to find out, especially during the COVID. But there's one thing I count on and I can bank on, and that's Titans radio is always excellent. I wouldn't dream of watching a game without hearing y'all's call because you never know what you'll miss. An example, a couple of weeks ago, Coach Dave hollered after a tackle, well, that's a forward over rooster tackle. And I thought I was going to hear a real super technical term and learn something from his days at coach. And Mike Key said, well, Coach, what is that? And he said, oh, that's where a Ford truck hits a rooster and feathers go everywhere. And that's what happened to that guy. Yep. And Mike Key got quiet for a beat and then said, I just had to ask. And I'm telling you, that is radio gold. So keep that up. And I'd love for you to talk a little bit behind the scenes how they have clicked so well together. I mean, never miss a beat. It's almost like a real nice comedy team. So, listen, your efforts are noted, and I appreciate you more than you'll ever know.
Hey, Kenny, thank you for that. Appreciate that. Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year, brother.
That's awesome. Let me say this. Well, first of all, Thursday night was Coach Mac's 100th game on Titans radio, and we tried to celebrate it as best we could. And what he's done for us in terms of moving up another notch in terms of having a former head coach in there.
Yeah.
And you think Tony Romo calls it before it happens. Coach Mac always does.
Yeah.
He knows. He's seen it on film a gajillion times.
He's like the Yoda of radio right now.
He really is. But the thing with Mike makes it so easy to work with, period, because he's such a pro and so good. And then the two of them together, it was just a natural fit. I mean, the main thing was working out the tango of, okay, I leave off and I pitch to you, and now you pitch back to me, and trying to get before the next play happens.
Yeah.
And Coach Mack picked up on that very quickly. But he's been a real game changer for Titans radio. There's no doubt about it.
Absolutely, man. I love listening to Coach Mack. You talk about listening to people, and if you're a student of the game and listen to him talk about the game, somebody who has probably seen so many transitions, talking about from smash mouth, pro style, run and shoot to now where we are in one of this flex RPO type offenses that we're using now.
Right.
You hear him talk about that. You hear him talk about from a front office perspective, even from a personnel adjusting and coaching perspective. I think maybe we don't necessarily, maybe they do, appreciate what we're actually getting to hear from the mindset of somebody who did it for 25, 30 years in this league, getting behind the scenes, behind the door type conversation on the radio. Like he's just
you're the fly on the wall.
Yeah, he's just a genius with that, and he's found his niche. Man, it's been fun to listen to him.
Well, to your point, because you played the game, I never played the game. I have gotten an NFL education from a former head coach.
Mm-hmm.
That's invaluable to me.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
and the thing that we've really focused on, the two of us, is the NFL draft. I'm like, I want you to show me, how do you build a draft board in a war room, and show me how you vet these guys.
Yeah.
And he goes, well, you ready to put in the work? I'm like, yep. And it's been some hours, but it's hours spending with Coach Mack. How can that be terrible, right?
Man, imagine that lesson you get to have, though. You get, like you said,
it's invaluable to me. I can't put a price
behind
on
the scenes. You can't.
No.
I mean, who else gets that opportunity?
Right. Because, I'm never going to see John Robinson's draft board. That this is like seeing gold inside, the vaults at Fort Knox.
Yeah.
It just doesn't happen.
Exactly.
So I got the next best thing, right? Jeremiah in Clarksville. Let's go to you at 615-737-1045. Jeremiah, you're on with Dr. Smooth Kevin Dyson. What's up?
Thank you for taking my call. I appreciate you, and I hope y'all have a blessed year coming up. I'm a disabled vet. I took a bullet to the head 16 years ago and lost both my eyes and the frontal lobe of my brain. So visually I can't see anything anymore, but I keep up with football. And, of course, man, as far as college goes, man, Alabama's number one, always will be. I love them, and that's where Derrick Henry come from. That's the best thing that ever happened to the Titans, and I hate that he got hurt. But if he ever comes back, they're going to be smoking every other pro league team there is, and all the rest of them teams know it too, and they're sweating him coming back. But I can't wait for Derrick Henry to come back. And them big old dreadlocks of his I hear floating in there when he's tearing the turf up out there. Look here, man, ain't nothing bad can be said about that man. He's the Black Peyton Manning, as far as I'm concerned. I love that dude, and if y'all can ever convey that to him, I'd appreciate it.
All right, Jeremiah, thank you for the call, and thank you for your service.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, man, that's good grief. Wow. So I guarantee you he listens to Titans radio, given what he outlined there. I think his sentiment is what every Titans fan is want. They're wanting the king to come back. Yeah. They're wanting Derrick Henry to come back in this backfield. And if it's at the exact right time, which we hope that's what it's going to be, I think he's right. I think Jeremiah's right. I think all the other 31 teams or whoever's involved in these playoffs is going, I don't want to see that. Yeah. Just like we talked about, we don't want to see Indianapolis or Kansas City again. I wouldn't want to see Derrick Henry in this defense. And then if the offense gets full, clicking all 8 cylinders, wow.
Again, it's the potential of it.
That's right.
It's just there. It's just you see it there and the potential of it. Nobody's like, okay, what do we do? Because right now you can kind of play it solid, if you will. You can kind of play it honest. But if Derrick Henry's in that backfield, as we saw before, I think statistically a couple weeks ago, almost 70% of snaps were single high versus the Titans with Derrick Henry in the ball game. So now people can go too high a lot bit more, but it hasn't really happened because they've been running the ball effectively. And we've seen Foreman has been great, but some of those runs, the difference in him and Derrick Henry is some of those runs are home runs as opposed to just big runs because Derrick Henry is just a different type of cat. So the potential of that is catastrophic for the National Football League. But again, it's only potential until you produce. What I'd like to see the next 2 weeks is in the passing game, along with the running game continue to evolve as it has with the backup guys, is how the passing game is going to evolve. How are you utilizing all your weapons? Because A.J. Brown's going to get a lot of attention the next 2 weeks, I would assume, until somebody else beats me. You know what I mean? If I'm on the other side there calling defense, I'm going to make somebody else beat me. Him getting 16 targets, or you can do the whole like the Pistons used to do with Michael Jordan. He's getting all, but the rest of the guys are not. You get yours, but everybody else will hold down. So we'll see how the team's approaching. But I really would love to see other guys get involved, especially Julio Jones.
Well, there's 3 things I think that the Titans have been struggling with in the last 3 or 4 weeks. The defense has not been one of them. You've outlined that. They've done as good as I've seen a Titans defense do since Mike Vrabel's been the head coach here. And I truly believe that with the way they've been performing. But the turnovers obviously is the big one. The next one is lack of ones that are in there because of injury. And that parlays into the other thing this Titans offense had been so explosive, especially in the tenure of Ryan Tannehill at quarterback. Mm-hmm. And when you don't have A.J. Brown and you don't have Julio Jones and you don't have Derrick Henry, I mean, those X plays went down exponentially. I mean, it was, and they had 3 X plays Thursday night, and one of them, a couple of them, big turning points in the game. When they got a free shot and a 42-yard bomb down there to A.J. Brown, and then the 23-yard run to set up everything at the end with Derrick Henry. The lack of explosion, and that's the other thing. And when you get those X plays back, you're more than likely going to put points on the board. Mm-hmm. And the other thing that is it really kind of feeds into the whole turnover part of it. When you don't have that and you're just trying to run the ball all that time, that increases the number of carries or opportunities for somebody to punch the ball out.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's so many things that come from those X plays that could be beneficial. But Mike Vrabel's presser we took at the top of the hour, Corey Curtis of News 2 mentioned the success that they'd had against tight ends, which hasn't been a thing until really kind of this year. And Mike Gesicki, the Dolphins tight end, what challenges does he bring to this Titans defense this weekend? Of course, Vrabel threatened to be done with him if that is a jinx, and rightly so, because George Kittle, last Thursday night, 2 catches, 21 yards, no scores. That's amazing.
I mean,
because that dude, the last three games prior, Kevin, 28 catches, 425 yards, 3 scores. 28 catches
in 3 games.
Yeah.
And as you said, in the recent memory, they've struggled versus the tight end.
They have.
They have.
That's been like the Achilles heel.
Yeah.
It really has. Travis Kelce, the day they beat the pants off of the Chiefs, 7 for 65, but no touchdown.
Yeah, exactly. The impact wasn't. He had 7 touches, but look, the impact wasn't.
And some of that came in junk time when they were trying to play catch up because they got out so far ahead.
Yeah.
Mike Gesicki, 64 catches, 685 yards, 2 touchdowns, and that's playing in 14 games. He's missed a couple, 10.7 per catch. So he certainly is a threat.
Yeah, he's good. Don't get me wrong. Everybody in the National Football League is good.
Yep,
you're right. But he's not on that level.
Oh, no. We just mentioned Kittle and Kelce.
Yeah, that's
then bring your list from down there. Yeah,
exactly.
Everybody else is next tier. And that's no disrespect to any T.J. Hawkinson, Noah Fant, any of those guys.
Right. Again, some of those guys are those dudes for a reason. And those dudes.
And the other thing I thought was interesting in Mike Vrabel's press conference, someone brought up Dane Cruikshank, who has had so many injury issues throughout his time as a Titan. He's done a really nice job coming in a package where he can take care of some of these tight ends and help at the safety spot. He's really doing a nice job. I've noticed that since his last stint dinged up, coming back and helping with this defense. He's one of those, it's a group effort. He's somebody you can point to that is really helping in the group effort part of it.
Yeah. Sometimes role players have to find their role on a specific team. And it could be the same team, just different years. And what is your role? How is your role fit? Because every year is different. And he's relishing in the role as he is. He's not the marquee player, not the star. He's a role player. He's an effective role player who's helping his team win games. And he's finding his niche. And I think that's critical for any good football team is, the stars who are who they are for a reason. But it's about those role players relishing those roles and be successful within those roles and making plays within those roles. We've seen it at different positions. Guys have had to step up. Even Westbrook Akine, like guys have had to step up at certain times and make plays and be more vital than they probably were anticipating going into the season or even that game. And I think guys like that, Cruikshank, and guys who are quote-unquote role players are relishing in their specific roles and are excelling. And that helps any good team win football games.
All right, let's set up kind of what this Miami game means to Ryan Tannehill and to the Titans. So I mentioned it. September 9th, 2018, 7 hours, 8 minutes, 2 different lightning delays of 2 hours. Longest game in NFL history. In that game, Marcus Mariota leaves with an injury. That was the whole hand and nerve issue in the elbow. Blaine Gabbert had to finish at quarterback. Taylor Lewan got trucked by a guy and rung his bell. He's out. You lose your best player on offense in Delaney Walker in the first quarter, I think, with a broken leg. You lose him for the year. Mm-hmm. Dennis Kelly's your right tackle, but had not played in that game and would miss some more time. He had a mysterious illness, kept him out for a few weeks. So you're losing guys left and right in this thing. And Ryan Tannehill was the quarterback of the Dolphins that day. They win 27-20 in the longest game in NFL history. First game for Mike Vrabel as head coach of the Titans. I'm sure, as we've mentioned earlier in the Buck Rising show, that Ryan Tannehill walks the walk and talks the talk in terms of what he says publicly. But inside, he wants this game as much as anything.
That's a competitive athlete. You're going to say all the politically correct things in your interviews. It's just another game. But there's something to say when you come back home or you play against the guys in a uniform that you spend a lot of time in the locker room with. You spend a lot of time investing. You were a captain or leader of that team. And then, things change. Change happens, and they let you go and get rid of your trade, whatever.
It's a business. It's a business at the end of the day.
You get caught up in the business part of it. And you've been sort of resurrected, if you will, in a new city that has embraced you. You've played well in this city, and now you get to come back and show what they're, quote-unquote, missing. Now, Tua's playing well. He's starting to show why he was drafted as high as it was, even coming off the injuries that he was having up until the draft. He's starting to play very well, playing during meaningful football season, in which is the playoff run right now. But it means a lot to Tannehill. It does. I promise you it does from a competitive athlete standpoint. This means a lot.
We'll leave you with this before we head to the break. Tua Tagovailoa, 8 touchdowns to just 3 interceptions in the window that they've won these last 6 games, one of which he missed. There was a game where Jacoby Brissett had to come in and play, and then he got dinged, and Tua had to come in and won the game. But anyway, he leads the NFL in completion percentage, 69.9%. Leads by a 1/10 of a point over Kyler Murray right now in the National Football League. Leads the NFL in completion percentage. That tells you where he's progressing as a pro in this thing.
And that shows you the level of accuracy, too.
That's right.
And the style of play. They're getting the ball in the hands of their playmakers like a lot of people are doing right now, dumping them off, letting them run, catch, creating some matchup problems and things of that nature. And, we can't forget, he still has the ability to run. He doesn't do it a whole lot, but he still does. He's a very athletic quarterback, too. So this is a matchup that I'm interested to see how the Titans approach him.
Yeah, Brian Flores has these guys playing. They'll come to town Sunday. We'll get you there all week long. And we will be back to wrap up hour 2 of the Buck Rising Show here on 104.5 The Zone. Finishing up hour 2 of the Buck Reising Show on the home for the Titans, 104.5 The Zone. I'm Rhett Bryan, joined by the doctor, Kevin Dyson. We've enjoyed today and enjoyed your phone calls. You can still call 615-737-1045. Our poll question for today that we're doing just with you interacting with us on the phones is, do you think the Titans can run the table? And I mean in the terms of the regular season. Can they beat Miami Sunday and then go to Houston in Week 18 and beat them to notch a couple of more wins, win the AFC South Division, so on and so forth? We'll figure out the seeding process. But where do you feel like after the win over the 49ers last Thursday night, can they run the table on the regular season? And we'd love to hear from you. Again, 615-737-1045. That's on the Mark Spain Real Estate Hotline. All right, as we wrap up with you, Dr. Dyson, I want to ask you a question I've never had a chance to ask you, and certainly on the air, but we are fastly approaching the, hard to believe this, 22nd anniversary of the Music City Miracle. And just in terms of requests for interviews, autographs, whatever inquiries, because it remains one of the greatest plays in football history.
Yeah.
I think when they had the 50th anniversary of the Super Bowl a few years ago, it was ranked like the number 9 play in NFL history, just because of the setting, what it meant. It clearly vaulted you guys into Super Bowl 34. I don't think, obviously, if that play's not there, you don't make it past the next round. But, you know, where does that start to pick up for you? Is it right now, when we get into New Year's Day, do people like, oh, wait a minute, it's January the 8th?
It'll start picking up more. It has. I've done some national radio here recently, but probably around the wild card weekend.
Okay.
It will. It starts picking up a little bit. People start talking about wild card plays, some memorable plays. There's several of them. And so, I kind of get in people's rotation a little bit talking about it. So it's fun. It's been fun. Like I said, there's Hall of Fame guys on each roster. I say each roster, but there's Hall of Fame guys in the National Football League, and there's role players. I was a role player, and to find or have something that people still talk about, still remember, still part of their lives, like you said, 22 years later, man, that's special. I mean, and it's unique because I could have just been retired and been done, like a lot of my former teammates and buddies and classmates.
And just going through life like everybody else.
Yeah.
Right.
But still be somewhat relevant 20-some-odd years later, that people still talk about stuff, and to be able to be like doing radio and interviews and stuff like that, man, it's humbling, but it's fun. And I'm appreciative of it. And, there's going to be a time where I'm phased out like everybody else. So
I don't know about that. We'll see. About time will tell on that one.
Right.
All right, let me follow up with this. What's the most common question when you're interviewed about that play? Forward pass, backward pass, lateral. Is it that, or is it something else?
It's usually I go back. The first thing it says, were you not supposed to be part of the play? Jeff Fisher said that you didn't know, and it was usually something to that effect. And then they asked me to go through that process, and then it, of course, is
you were what, the 4th or maybe 5th guy down the chain?
I don't even
right?
know if that's the case. I was the backup's backup to the backup.
Right.
I don't even know.
Because Ike Bird was supposed to
be
be
in the game.
He had
he was in. It was me and him are returning.
Okay, that's right.
It was Derek Mason went out. I think a concussion. Around the same time I was getting an IV, and his backup, Anthony Dorsett Jr. was cramping up. And again, the irony of that all, I was cramping up mid-third quarter, towards the end of the third quarter. I went to go get IVs because I couldn't hardly run, and he couldn't run, obviously. So I returned kicks in college and even did some my rookie year in preseason. So I think that was naturally, there's like, who else on our team can return kicks? And so they came and got me, and, lo and behold, it worked out. In 20-something years, 20-plus years, I've never asked Isaac Byrd his thought process. And that's one thing I need to do one time, to get on radio and talk to Isaac Byrd, because Isaac was supposed to be the lateral guy. But when the ball was kicked in the air in a bloop, he came up and got out of position. And I don't know if anybody's ever interviewed him. I've never asked him. I'd be interested to find out why he came up and played the ball as he did, and leaving me to receive the lateral. Could have very easily been Isaac Byrd, one carrying that rock.
Sure. All right, you said something else that just reminded me. You said there's Hall of Famers on each side of that both teams in this thing since that play has been that long ago. And we know Eddie George is among 26 semifinalists for the class of 2022 Pro Football Hall of Fame. Something that all Titans fans have their fingers crossed that Eddie gets in this thing. And when you look at the class, and it's one of those things where he's had to wait his turn because there's been so many. When you have years where Peyton, and those guys, the first balloters, you got to get through those things. But he's certainly deserving. He never missed a game. 7 or 8 1,000-yard rushing years. I mean, it's amazing what he did, and of course was the genesis of the offense.
Mm-hmm.
But it's got to be cool to think about that as your teammate, and that there's a possibility he gets a gold jacket out of this deal.
Man, I hope so. And if we win that Super Bowl 34,
he's in,
especially what he did in that second half where we just hopped on his back and he just kind of willed us to tie that game, right? We win that game, he's in there. I believe the fact that Kurt Warner won that game helped him get in as early as he did. Statistically, he had a lot of numbers, but considering the type of league we are in now and what Eddie did, especially to start his career with like 7 straight 1,000 or 8 yard straight 1,000-yard season to start a career was a record,
and never missed a game, Kevin.
And didn't miss games, and he was getting the ball, and he still did all this, right? To me, that especially in the era in which he ended up playing in, where we were transitioning to what we see now is pass first type offenses. That shows you a little bit more about his impact, not only just on a team but on a city. People still chant his name. I mean, he's global. I knew his impact was big when we went to Philly for a preseason game and we had to shut down Foot Locker. We just out going shopping, went to the mall, and we go in the Foot Locker, and we basically had to shut down Foot Locker. I was like, man, this dude, he's global. Wow. So
that's the same preseason game where it decided in the second half whether it was Kevin Daft or Billy Volek as the third quarterback.
Yeah,
and Billy won it.
Billy
I remember that game.
Yeah, and that's my first time to the vet. It was a vet then.
That's right, and that's the thing I remember about Eddie in those old stadiums, especially with you guys being the AFC Central and Three Rivers and Cincinnati and those. I remember seeing him in the locker room, and it looked like he'd been in a fight with a bear where he was just skin up all over. Before you guys had those pads to go over your elbows and all that, he looked like he'd been in a fight with a grizzly bear. And he just unbelievable.
Turf, that was like one of the hardest turfs ever. I couldn't wait to get out the game.
Like playing on grandma's patio back there with that fake grass over the concrete, right?
Let me get my reps in and get out. That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Kevin, I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed these last couple of hours with you. Finally get to do radio with Dr. Kevin Dyson. It's been a pleasure. That's all mine. But I really appreciate you helping me out on Buck's show today.
Man, absolutely, man. I always have fun with doing the show, man, and doing these shows, all the ones I've been able to be a part of, man. And it's a good time, man. I appreciate y'all having me.
Yeah, man. Enjoy the rest of your holiday break, and he'll be here Sunday as the Titans take on the Miami Dolphins as a part of League Company Countdown to Kickoff and Titans Tallback, all those good things. You hear him and Blaine and Mickey for so many years right here on your home for all things Titans. And Buck Reising Show, we will continue. Hour 3 of the show is next on your home for the Titans, 104.5 The Zone. Hour 3 of the Buck Rising Show on 104.5 The Zone. No, not Buck Rising here. Rhett Bryan, Titans Radio. If you're just joining us, man, you missed some good stuff. Dr. Kevin Dyson spent the first couple hours with me. We talked all kinds of good stuff. Dolphins coming up this weekend, what it means for the rest of the season. And that brings us to the poll question that we kind of transferred from Titans, or from Twitter, I should say, to the phone lines. And that's where we want you to get involved, 615-737-1045. And that is, do you think that the Titans can run the table? And I mean in terms of finishing out the regular season 2-0, winning over Miami on Sunday and then traveling to Houston next week and winning back-to-back games. And that's based on your feelings after last Thursday night's win over a very good San Francisco 49ers team. We're going to go back to the Mark Spain Real Estate Hotline, and let's talk to Jason in Nashville. Jason, what's on your mind?
Hey, thanks for taking my call, man. I just had a couple of key points on this to answer this question. I can't really say that they will run the table, and the reason why is because the Titans are known to beat teams that they shouldn't, and then they lose in teams that they should be whooping up on. And not to take away from AJ or anybody else that performed good the other night with the Niners, but I honestly believe the best player for the Titans was Jimmy Garoppolo, and he's not even with the Titans. He threw major interceptions, one in the red zone that should have been a touchdown, overthrew one of his fullbacks that was wide open that was going to be another touchdown. So there was just a lot of key mistakes that the Titans capitalized off of, and I'm afraid that if they play a good team, that it's going to expose the weakness in their defense, because I just don't believe that that was all, not to take away from that win, a win is a win, but I don't believe that that was all the Titans. I believe that was a lot of mistakes on the Niners that helped them get to where they was at the other night. So I believe they'll beat Houston, but I'm iffy on Miami. So that's just my opinion.
Well, Jason, thanks for the call. I appreciate that very much. Has concern in the voice of Jason from Nashville. And look, he's right, because if you think about, recent Titans history, and really a lot of Titans history, they beat folks that they are not supposed to and sometimes lose to folks that they're not supposed to. But that is really the essence of the National Football League in 2021. There's plenty of different teams and in different both conferences that have done that kind of thing this year, whether it's injuries, COVID, whatever, or just not showing up and getting off the bus in this thing. A couple other questions I want to throw out to you, too, this hour as we are in the third and final hour of the Buck Rising show. Not only do you think whether the Titans can go 2-0, run the table, and finish out the regular season, but like Jason's concern there, with what Houston did to the Chargers yesterday in a 41-29 victory at NRG Stadium, is that not as sure a thing in Week 18 as it maybe was in recent weeks? And certainly, the Titans lost to the Texans here just a few weeks ago at Nissan Stadium. And then who is the team that's getting hot right now that could make a run? Is there any team in the AFC that you can say that about? The NFC is a little more parsed out. We know kind of who's doing what, and already, folks went in divisions and seeds over there. But the AFC is still the wild, wild west outside of the Kansas City Chiefs. And is there a team that you can say that about in the AFC? Or let's ask this question. Who is the team you would not want to play right now? And for me, there's two teams, the Indianapolis Colts and what Jonathan Taylor is doing at running back position. And they've been decimated by COVID-19 reserve list folks, and they've had 5 more added today, including Marlon Mack, who hadn't even been playing as the third running back in this thing. So I wouldn't want to play either Kansas City or Indianapolis. Maybe you have a difference of opinion, and we want to hear that if you do at 615-737-1045. That's the Mark Spain Real Estate Hotline here on 1045 The Zone. So we've been talking about what happened last Thursday night, and that's why I brought up the initial poll question of, do you think the Titans can run the table the rest of the regular season and win these last couple of games? Because of the way that they beat the San Francisco 49ers. And, they were down 10-0 at the half and really put in a big second half in this. But A.J. Brown was a major part of that. Now, Jason in Nashville, our recent caller, he's right. Jimmy Garoppolo made some serious mistakes, a couple of errant throws and that turned into interceptions that the Titans capitalized off of, and that's what the Titans needed to do because they turned the ball over 13 times in their previous 3 games, and we know how those ended, and it wasn't good. They won the turnover battle. That's one of the big reasons why they won this game, and you're right, Jason, when you called in a few minutes ago, he missed a connection with Kyle Juszczyk, the fullback, for a wide-open touchdown on that, so it could have certainly been a different ball game. But it was just the opposite of what they'd done in Pittsburgh just 4 days before that. But A.J. Brown was such a huge part of this game. He had 11 catches on 16 targets, 145 yards, and a touchdown. 8 of his 11 catches were on third down, 6 of which resulted in first downs. And I saw this stat via Jim Wyatt the other day. Since 1978, A.J. Brown became the first player to produce 8 or more catches on third down in a single game. Now, think about that. 1978, we're almost to 2022. It's amazing that A.J. Brown meant that much. But you could see it in the way that Ryan Tannehill, because Ryan Tannehill needed a kind of a comeback game himself, and he did a really nice job in the second half of that game and was rifling the ball out with a lot of mustard on it, if you will, and getting it to not just A.J. Brown, but the other receivers involved in that. Let's go back to the phones here. Darnell in Nashville. Darnell, what you got for us here on the Buck Reising Show today?
Hey, bro. I'd just like to say that I think I would love to face either the Colts or Kansas City in the first round of the playoffs. And one reason being is that the Titans seem to show up when we're facing adversity or we're an underdog or it's a team that everyone is just already expecting us to lose to. Those are the games we win. I'm more afraid of getting past the first round or so and then facing the lowest seeded team and then they coming in and just, New York jetting us or something.
Okay, Darnell, thanks for that. That's a valid point. I still, with the way that Indianapolis and Kansas City have played these last few weeks, I mean, Kansas City's run 8 in a row off since they lost to the Titans. They were 3-4 at the end of that ball game at Nissan Stadium, and they have never looked back. And they're starting to do Kansas City Chiefs type things. I mean, Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce. And I feel like one of the biggest things as to why that is working, and it's not just one guy, but Chris Jones on defense for them was dinged up in that game at Nissan Stadium several weeks ago. And he came in, tried to make some plays, tried to be effective, just wasn't himself. He's back healthy now, and they're really clamping down on some folks on that defense. But certainly, Kansas City and Indianapolis, those are the 2 teams I would not want to see right now. All right, so let's think about Week 16 in the National Football League. And, man, there was some stuff in there that it's continuing to be 2021 in the NFL, in my opinion. I didn't even watch the second half of the Cowboys win over the Washington football team. It was so dominant. And, of course, they have won that division, won it handily, and, could very well vie for the number 1 seed in the AFC. Now, that currently belongs to the Green Bay Packers. And the Green Bay Packers, they keep rolling right along. They get some close. Their defense is suspect with how many points and yards they've been giving up, but the difference has been Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams. The Chargers is one of the ones that surprised me a little bit yesterday. They went into NRG Stadium at Houston, and with some bad play by Justin Herbert, the quarterback, a couple of interceptions. In fact, one was a pick six. They just got housed. It was 41-29 was the final. But, I mean, Houston, they never took their foot off the gas in that. And the Chargers were one of the teams going into this season that I thought, with the personnel they have, even though they were young, and having the quarterback that they do, and that he is their quarterback, there's no question, really like Justin Herbert. I thought they would have a chance to have double-digit wins and be in the playoffs in this, and they had a real setback last week, yesterday, I should say, in Houston. So when we continue this hour, the last hour of the Buck Rising Show. We will get your phone calls and questions on the Mark Spain Real Estate Hotline. That's at 615-737-1045. Our poll question, do you think the Titans can run the table the rest of the regular season, beating Miami, beating Houston next week, and finish with 12 wins on the 2021 season? We'll take your phone calls and questions, and we'll talk Titans with you as we continue the Buck Rising Show here on 104.5 The Zone. Hour 3 of the Buck Rising Show. on the longtime home for Titans football. 104.5 The Zone continues on this Monday following the big holiday weekend. Hope everybody had a great Christmas and are looking forward to a happy new year, 2022, right around the corner. Want to tell you something really cool that's going to happen right up to kickoff of the Titans-Dolphins game this weekend at Nissan Stadium. In partnership with the Ashton Real Estate Group, Bayard Family Legacy Fund, the Bayard Family Legacy Fund, and the Titans are hosting a shoe drive for children, and that is for children and teens in foster care. The inaugural Nashville Kick for Kids drive will be held at Nissan Stadium when they face the Dolphins this weekend, this Sunday, and the Titans are asking for you guys to bring lightly used or new sneakers of all sizes to the drop-off locations around the stadium before entering the game. And you can visit NashvilleKicks.org for more information or to donate to the Bayard Family Legacy Fund directly. And as a way to say thank you, the Titans will honor donors with a chance to be eligible to win a signed Kevin Bayard football. Very cool thing that they're doing prior to kickoff of Titans and Dolphins on Sunday, and a chance to get an autographed Kevin Bayard football while helping the kids out with some sneakers. It's good stuff. Kick for kids. And Kevin Bayard's second Pro Bowl of his career just announced last Wednesday night, and the only Pro Bowl announcement for the Titans, although there are 7 alternates in this thing. So I'm sure there's some of the guys in that locker room feel like they were snubbed, and that may be a motivating factor in this thing. As our poll question has been all day, do you think that the Titans will run the table the rest of the regular season? In other words, do you think they will beat Miami this Sunday and then next Sunday go to Houston and beat the Houston Texans to go 2-0 to finish out the 2021 regular season? Or are you a little apprehensive because of the way the Titans and the Texans games go, just like earlier in the year at Nissan Stadium, or maybe what happened with the New York Jets? Or maybe it's just because you saw what the Houston Texans did to the Chargers yesterday at home in Houston and really made Justin Herbert look kind of pedestrian in this thing, and they boat raced him 49-21. It was never close. And if you're like me, you want to see more of what Miami has to offer. And Miami is on Monday Night Football tonight against the New Orleans Saints, who have Ian Book at quarterback, the former Notre Dame passer. Hey, I'm joined by Joe Hunk, the producer for 3HL, for the rest of this hour.
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Let's do a little radio together. This is good.
This is
so
awesome.
You heard my poll question. Do you think the Titans can run the table the rest of the regular season? Do you think they could beat Miami and Houston in back-to-back weeks and finish the season 12-5 in the first 17-game regular season of the NFL?
See, I feel like the Houston game is going to be extremely. We don't know the scenario for the Titans going in.
Mm-hmm.
Like if it's the scenario that they beat Miami on Sunday, they go into Houston knowing that, look, it is a scenario that if we win, we win. If we don't, we're still the AFC South champions. Then that's the scenario. But the other part is I don't know any inside information. You know that. I just feel like we're going to get some really good news next Monday or Tuesday. Like I really kind of feel that way. That would
I think I know what you're talking about.
Look, I'm not hinting at anything. I'm just saying I feel like we get good news next Monday or Tuesday, and that totally changes the mentality of going into that Texans game.
You're saying 2022 starts off with a bang.
With the 22. I mean, I like the way that you threw the 22 in there. Yep. So I feel like that would be the news in it. Do I think that they can run the table? Absolutely. I do also want to see how Miami goes into this game, but I don't know how much we can learn about the Dolphins in this football game tonight.
Because Ian Book is the quarterback of the Saints.
Look, you're talking about an Ian Book that it was your practice squad quarterback.
Yep.
And until they signed Blake Bortles, this was actually going to be Alvin Kamara was going to be your backup quarterback in this football game. Like, this is a very injured Saints. Like, do we even know Sean Payton? Is he even going to be at the football game because of all the positive and negative
That's
COVID
a great
tests?
question. I haven't looked that far into it.
And that's what, like, when you go to these websites and you see all the previews of, oh, hey, this is what's going to happen nowadays, even with these bowl games that are happening right now, you also need this list of who is opted out, who is positive for COVID, who is not going to be there, who is going to be there.
You need all these sidebars.
You do need all these sidebars because we don't know exactly what's going to be happening with that. So that's the case of I want to see more from Miami. They did start off 1-7. They have won like every single game since. And Tonga Vailoa is playing a lot better than what a lot of people thought.
And you're right. And we're gonna outline that right here. Per Brett Batchelor, who is running the show today behind the glass, he says that Sean Payton will be on the sidelines for the New Orleans Saints tonight.
Okay, so you at least have your mastermind.
That's right.
But it's as long as you're getting it to Alvin Kamara, then that's going to be your game plan the whole time.
So Brian Flores' Dolphins are one of the teams that, you said it. They started out 1-7. They did really well last year, considering a lot of things they went through and transitions and those things. But they've reeled off 6 in a row. And Tua Tagovailoa is a big part of the reason why. If you remember, the first win of this 6-game win streak, it was either Sunday night or Monday night, I forget what it was, and against the Houston Texans. And Tua was banged up, and it was Jacoby Brissett at quarterback who got dinged up in the game, and Tua came in to win it, to start the streak, if I'm not mistaken. Tua leads the NFL in completion percentage right now. 69.9% of his passes. He leads the National Football League. 1/10 of a point better than Kyler Murray of the Arizona Cardinals. 8 touchdowns to just 3 picks. He's a big reason why. Now, Mike Vrabel, we carried his press conference at the top of the 11 o'clock hour, and he outlined it with how they've taken care of the football. They have had 12 to 13 forced turnovers in their last 6 weeks and haven't turned it over a bunch. And we know too well about the Titans' woes with that as of late. And obviously that's just one of the benchmarks of, if you win the turnover battle, more than likely you're going to win the football game.
Right. And that is where the Titans, the thing that they did so well on Thursday is being a lot more careful with the football.
Yeah.
And I loved watching that team. And you saw Ryan Tannehill's progression as a quarterback just in that football game of gaining the confidence back because he saw number 11 on the field.
And I'm glad you said that part of it, because the thing I noticed as you got into the third and fourth quarters, he had some stuff on that football.
Oh.
He was rifling that football into number 11.
The muscle memory is something that doesn't get talked about a lot because we saw AJ, and even Mike Vrabel talked about it earlier during the week of, hey, look, AJ's going to be jogging out there. He's going to be participating a little bit. We're going to see it. Over the course of the last 5 or 6 weeks, we've seen Tannehill. It's something about, okay, I see the receiver open, but that's not 11 or 2. So I don't know if when I throw it to him, if he's actually going to catch it. And it sounds horrible to say that because these are NFL wide receivers. But at the same time, you also see if I throw one up in the air, AJ's going to go up and get that football. And later into that game, the more that you got out of the first and second quarter when they only had the 55 yards, they got into the third quarter. And when Tannehill started throwing it to 11, look, you're seeing out routes that he was throwing to AJ. AJ was double covered on that, but he knew that if it got to a fingertip of A.J. Brown, he was going to catch it. And then you start seeing that confidence of Ryan Tannehill grow and grow and grow. And you guys talked about it on the OTP after the game. We know what the storyline going into this week is going to be about. It's going to be about 17 versus his whole team.
That's it.
But now he's also got number 11 out there that's giving him a lot more confidence.
Sure.
And you saw that even with the run game and what AJ and number 2 and having Julio on that field does, because now the secondary has to back up a little bit. And you saw Foreman and you saw Hilliard finding those holes that they were starting to be a lot more productive at the running back position. Just having those 2 players out did a lot for this football team, and having them on that field on Saturday or Thursday, whatever
One
day
of those
they
days.
played. Look, we've had Christmas, we've had everything. But the thing is, when you look at Miami, they have a wide receiver in Jalen Waddle. They have an amazing
who they
tight end.
traded a 2022 first-round pick for.
Yes. So they have a great wide receiver. They have a really good tight end. But they also have Tonga Vailoa that doesn't run the football a lot, but he extends the plays. It's
and
almost
he still
like,
could, and that's the threat.
Absolutely. And you have Myles Gaskin. you're seeing kind of almost a variation of the team you just played with a more mobile quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where going up against Miami could be a lot more unsettling, because with Garoppolo, you knew that he wasn't going to get around. Like, he was not going to outrun Bud Dupree, but Tagovailoa might.
Mike Gesicki is the tight end you're talking about for the Dolphins. 64 catches, 685 yards, 2 touchdowns, 10.7 per catch. And that's missing a couple of games this year. He's only played in 14. Now, he is by no means Travis Kelce or George Kittle. But with the success they've had against tight ends this year, which has not always been a thing with this Titans defense as of late, it's impressive. The thing I wanted to circle back with A.J. Brown, and I've thrown this out a few times here on the Buck Reising show today. Did you see the crazy stat that Jim Wyatt had about A.J. Brown? He had 16 targets, 11 catches, 145 and a score. 8 of those 11 catches were on third down, 6 of which contributed or resulted in first downs. He's the first player since 1978 to produce 8 or more catches on third down in a single game.
That goes back to having with Tannehill having confidence. Like, all of this is about Tannehill's confidence, because you look at the Texans game, because it's something that we still look at of how did they lose this football game. He didn't have confidence in his throwing arm. He didn't have confidence in his receivers. He didn't have confidence in a lot of things, plus the rain added into it. Having A.J. Brown back on and knowing that no matter what down it is, 3rd and 22,
yes,
if I throw it to number 11 and he gets a paw on it, he's bringing it in. That adds.
How about
so
the
much
moxie
confidence
with the quarterback on that play, though? It's like, all right, maybe I can draw them off right here.
Yeah.
Oh, drew them off. Free play.
And this
Boom.
is what, and the way that I felt like the play call went was, look, if we don't pull them off, then we'll just go into the end of the quarter, and we just go into the end of the quarter. But if you see somebody jump, here's the play. This is what we're going to go about. This is the play that we're going with. And he, not only the fact that he drew them off, so he knew he had the free 5, but he also draws them off and then runs almost to the line of scrimmage, throws off like the back foot and finds AJ on it.
Yep.
That is totally a play I've done on Madden numerous times. You don't do that in real life.
No, not really.
You do not do that in real life. And
No,
AJ
unless
does
you're
it.
Josh Allen. We saw him do that against the Patriots yesterday.
Yes, and that is that type of play that he doesn't make that play 2 weeks ago. He doesn't make that play 3 weeks ago. It's because of having AJ back on the field and the confidence.
And that's no slight towards the wide receiving core that's in there with the Nick Westbrook-Akinas and Chester Rogers and all those guys. It's just different.
When he went up to the line of scrimmage, there was one quarterback that all week we knew that's the guy. If you look, remember the water boy when the punter or the kicker goes down the field and he starts looking down the line, which one's my guy? Which one's there? He is. Number 20 was that guy. We knew it all week. He's the one that gets all the defensive pass interference calls. He's the one that's had all the touchdowns thrown on him. If there was a guy that you wanted number 11 to be up against, if he's up against him, you just throw it up to him, because you already had the 5. You may have gotten a pass interference if you didn't get the catch. And that's exactly what it was. Tannehill had everything in his favor on that play.
I guarantee you the Chargers are asking the same question that the Titans did a few weeks ago at Nissan Stadium. How did we lose that game? Because Houston had 16 guys on COVID reserve. I mean, there was a lot of starters missing in that thing, but they won the turnover battle. I mean, Justin Herbert had 2 picks, one of which was a pick 6, and that ended up being a lot of the difference in that ball game. Plus, Austin Eckler, their main back, he was placed on COVID list on Saturday, and was not going to play in this thing. But you just never know week to week. And the NFC, while the NFC is a little more settled, the AFC is the wild, wild west right now. I mean, Kansas City's the only team that's locked up anything in this conference. And the rest of it is up for grabs, kind of.
Well, and there's teams that we have talked about for weeks that we thought were going to get the division, like the Patriots. And then you see what happened with the Buffalo Bills yesterday, and Buffalo comes in and wins that football game. Now they're the number 1 team in that division.
Yep.
And the only good thing that continues to happen, my wife and I were talking about this yesterday as we were watching the local game. She's like, okay, so what games matter to you? I said, Bills and Patriots matter. Because again, the tiebreaker scenario where the Patriots own the tiebreaker over the Titans. And I said, and I'm paying attention to Chiefs and Steelers, because if the Chiefs lose, then the Titans are back in the number 1 overall seed for the AFC because they own the tiebreaker. Those are the games that mattered. And now the Patriots are now their backs are up against the wall with 2 weeks left. The Bills own the division and have a very favorable schedule over the next 2 weeks because I believe the Jets and maybe the Dolphins. I think the Jets and Dolphins that they have left over, where the Patriots have 2 very hard football games. But as you went into yesterday, everything I thought about was we were automatically giving L's to football teams just based on their COVID list.
Yeah.
Just like with the Texans.
Right.
We automatically gave them the L of, oh, you guys are horrible and you don't have these players.
The Colts, the same thing.
Yes.
I mean, they added 5 more guys today.
Yes.
But you wonder if this COVID reserve list ends up getting a team somewhere along the way in these next 2 weeks. And that may very well be a thing. Does it get the Colts? Does it get somebody else that's, competing? We're going to find out. Now, for rooting purposes this week, obviously, you want the Titans to beat the Dolphins. They do that. They're AFC South champions back-to-back years. Never done that before since the AFC South was created in realignment in 2002. And then the other one, we're big Joe Burrow fans. As the Bengals host the Kansas City Chiefs this weekend, and Joe Burrow went off yesterday. 500 yards.
Man.
I mean, he was slinging it. Big Joe Burrow and Bengals fan this week.
Well, and that Bengals team is a very good football team. And it says that when you're like, wait a second, of course, they're winning, they're leading their division right now. Of course, they're a good football team. Chase is legit. And the chemistry that Burrow and Chase have is undeniable. You want to talk about confidence in your receiver?
Yep.
Those plays, going back a couple of weeks ago, I rewatched the Bengals and 49ers game that happened 2 weeks ago before the 49ers played. And
the Bengals lost that one in overtime.
The Bengals lost that one in overtime. But what people don't know, the Bengals were actually down 17 points, like in the half. They were down a ton, and it just became the Jamar Chase show. Every single thing he did. He caught one football but was out of bounds. That would have been a touchdown. He had 2 other touchdowns that he did score. And that chemistry level between those 2 players, you add that in with the fact that Joe Mixon is running the football very well. That is a very, very good Bengals team. That is one where it's not so much like the Steelers-Chiefs game yesterday where you're looking and going, how did we lose? Like, how many Titans fans were asking themselves that question after they were watching that Chiefs game yesterday? How did we lose to this team?
So to our conversation about COVID list.
Yes.
So Bob Kravitz, longtime writer, and he's current writer for The Athletic. Colts' biggest obstacle for a postseason push could be COVID-19. And this is a quote here. He says, DeForest Buckner got it exactly right when he said the quiet part out loud Saturday night in Glendale, Arizona. The playoff race is close, and I feel like the teams that can handle the COVID-19 situation are going to be the ones that are going to be able to get into the playoffs. So Christmas night, the Colts were without Darius Leonard, their best linebacker, probably their best player on defense, guard Mark Glowinski, cornerback Rock Ya-Sin, receiver Zach Pascal, safety Kari Willis, safety Andrew Sendejo, guard Quentin Nelson, arguably the best offensive lineman in football, and pass rusher specialist Kimoko Toure. And they still won. And I feel like, if DeAndre Hopkins is playing ball for Arizona, maybe that's a little different because, again, what your quarterback does in confidence level when his number one guy is out there. But it's amazing to see. And again, hats off to Houston. They beat what I thought was a good Chargers team yesterday and were decimated by people missing that were on the COVID-19 reserve list.
I feel like in 2021, the COVID injuries or the COVID situations have almost become rallying cries for a lot of players. Like it's look, okay, you're taking this player away. Oh, you now don't believe in us? Like it's automatically giving everybody that
it pushes that us against the world narrative to the front.
Look at the Titans and look at this stuff. I was very skeptical going into Thursday night.
Well, yeah, you're missing half your starting line.
Yes, and you're starting a guy at left tackle that yes, you've recruited, and as far as are you drafted, but at the same time, he really hasn't had any significant snaps on the offensive line, period, let alone at left tackle.
And you know why? One of the reasons why, of course, think about this. He's a small school guy, North Dakota State, Played in one game last year.
Because FCS schools, their season was in the spring. They wasn't in the fall with the rest of them. So you had the option, and it was the same scenario for like Trey Lance of either play or get ready for the draft.
So he played in one game with protecting Trey Lance, and it was a game against, I think it was Arkansas Central. So he hadn't played anything in 2 years, basically.
Right.
And again, the step between there and the National Football League is pretty wide.
Yeah.
So between bringing him along and then needing someone who had veteran experience to go through all of these injury situations, that created an issue where he couldn't fully practice like an offensive lineman needs to practice. They need that for, hand placement, foot placement, the knockback, all that stuff.
And people don't realize what it's like going from the left side of the line to the right side of the line. The equivalent of that is batting left-handed versus batting right-handed in baseball.
Sure.
You're using different parts of your body, even though they're like, oh, well, he's at right tackle. Let's just put him at left tackle. No, you're having to learn to do the direct opposite of what you were just learning with the right tackle position, doing it at left tackle. And those scenarios of seeing him grow and to go into this situation where basically they said, look, this is your opportunity, bro. This is your shot because
number called, step it up.
This is it. Yeah. And it is that nobody believes in me. I've heard all the talk on the radio stations and everything of, look, I was a second-round draft pick, but I'm on the practice squad. Like, I'm barely even dressing out at times.
Well, I figured that is where a veteran like Ben Jones, who is the centerpiece of all that, pun intended, really can help a guy in those situations. But I thought he did a very solid job, Dylan Radins. Played all snaps, all 62 on offense. And outside of a chop block call with him and Aaron Brewer, didn't hear his name.
No.
Which is exactly what you want.
No, and you saw the running game going to the left side a lot more than what we thought it was going to be because a lot of times when you would think Tannehill was coming up to the line of scrimmage, he was going, all right, where's 97? All right, Bosa's over here. I'm going to go this way. And that was almost by design, where Nick Bosa was going to the opposite side of the offensive line, going up against the right tackles, going, look, I know that your left side is not strong, so I can go over to this side and make you go that direction, and my defense is going to handle it. And the Titans went, all right. And again, Foreman, amazing running call. That got called back. That ball went to the left side, and the Titans didn't stray away from doing that, even though you had guys on the line of scrimmage that a lot of us, especially in the stands, didn't have a lot of faith in.
When we come back, we will wrap up the Buck Reising show. And don't forget, it's instead of Blaine and Mickey today, it's Blaine and Lucas Panzica because Mickey is out today. Mickey's the birthday guy today.
Yes.
Mickey Ryan with the birthday. But it'll be Blaine and Lucas on the way at the top of the hour. But we'll be back to finish up the Buck Reising show on the home for Titans football, 104.5 The Zone. The elements bringing us back. A little earth, little wind, little fire. September. One of my favorite songs. It's the Buck Reising Show on 104.5 The Zone. I am Rhett Bryan, filling in for Buck today, alongside Joe Hunk, taking us into, instead of Blaine and Mickey, Mickey's out today, Mickey the birthday guy, be Blaine and Lucas Panzica at the top of the hour. So we're looking forward to seeing what they have to talk about today. We have talked all show about what your feelings are with the Titans. Do you think they can run the table to finish the regular season? Beat Miami, beat Houston. A lot of you believe that is the case. Some of you have been more skeptical, and I can understand why. And to set up kind of where we're going to finish this thing, and you said it, Joe, the narrative from the national media in this is going to be Ryan Tannehill versus his old team. Mm-hmm. Because the last time that the Titans saw the Dolphins, September the 9th, 2018, regular season opener in Miami at Hard Rock Stadium, Mike Vrabel's first game as head coach of the Titans. That game saw Marcus Mariota leave with an injury to his elbow/hand. It was a nerve issue. That was a thing that was really a topic in 2018. Blaine Gabbert had to finish that game at quarterback. Taylor Lewan got just trucked by a guy, blindside, and they got his bell rung. He left the game. Right tackle Dennis Kelly had some mysterious illness going on, lost a lot of weight, whatever. Didn't see him for several weeks, so he was not in there. And you lost your best offensive weapon in Delaney Walker, broken leg in either the first or second quarter. It was in the first half. That ended up being a season-ending injury. And then, of course, there were two different lightning delays of 2 hours each that they played through. It became the longest game in NFL history, 7 hours, 8 minutes long. And that leads to the storyline. Ryan Tannehill was on the other side. He was on the winning side that day, 27-20. But he was the quarterback for the Dolphins. And here is his chance to internally, because Kevin Dyson said it earlier when he was helping me on Buck's show today. He's going to say the right things being a pro. Mm-hmm. But inside, he's on fire. He wants to show, yep, you traded me away for a bag of potato chips, basically, and I've never looked back, and I want to bury you.
And the whole scenario is going to be through the week as it gets closer and closer. He is going to be more and more focused about everything. Every little detail, he is going to be more focused. I think that when he comes out on the field on Sunday, he's going to be more emotional. He's going to probably be more of a vocal leader than what we've even seen from him throughout the regular season. And I don't think it's going to be you're going to hear him on TV saying, yeah, it's me versus Miami, because that's just not who he is, nope. Especially that. And two, he doesn't want to give anybody any billboard material. But at the same time, he understands what's at stake, because as much as it's him personally is about him versus Miami, for the Titans, it's one win and you're the South champs. And that's all it's about for as a team as a whole. Because even though we talked about last break about possibly the good news with, possibly happening next Monday or Tuesday, you also do not want to go into next week having to know that if you do not win that football game that against the Texans, instead of having home field advantage, instead of having the division round at home, you're now having to worry about, or the wild card round at home, you're now having to worry about possibly going on the road if you don't win that, because the Colts, and you saw them Saturday night, they are a very good football team. So the national media is going to hype this up as Tannehill versus Miami. The locals, as we all watch this is about securing the AFC South.
Yeah.
That's what this is about.
And by doing the things that you did last Thursday night, you won the turnover battle. You did not give it up, and you made mistakes.
Yes.
And you capitalized on those mistakes that you forced. And you got some explosion back because you got your wide receiver back. And you put it all together. Now, you had some costly penalties at some inopportune times, but they didn't bite you in the end of the thing. But your defense is playing really well, really well. And if they can get the rest of it shored up, they could be really dangerous, especially with the potential good news that you're hinting at. That you hope
if
we
the
get
good news happens.
If the good news happens.
And I think that one person, speaking of that defense, that needs to be complimented about it, because even I, on our video game streams that we do on Wednesday night, have made fun. I've made fun of Jackrabbit Jenkins just as much as everybody else has. He had almost the play of the football game, if not the play of the season.
In my mind, no question, because they score right there, and the Titans are down 14-0. That's a different outcome.
Absolutely.
I don't think the Titans get out of that.
No.
I think Mike Vrabel and his coaching staff and those players probably would agree privately.
Well, and as much as we talked about, hey, go after 20. If 11 is on 20, you throw it to 11, no matter what, because you're going to get the defensive pass interferences. You're going to have the advantage height-wise. You're going to have the advantage everything. It's a rookie cornerback going up against A.J. Brown. The other flip side of this, Garoppolo dropped back and said, I've got arguably the best tight end on Jackrabbit Jenkins, and that's exactly where I'm going. And Jackrabbit made the play. Nobody expected him to make that play, and he made it on one of the best tight ends in the NFL.
And the officiating crew, Sean Hockley, they averaged 17 penalties a game.
Mm-hmm.
So you knew there's some possibilities there with the matchups you're talking about. And, hey, Ryan Tannehill, what a great game for him to get juiced up in this thing heading into this one, because when they were down 10-0 at the half, I want to say he was 8 of 10 for 40 yards, something like that. He finishes 22 of 29, 209 and a score. He did exactly what he was supposed to do. And again, was delivering the ball with some zip when 11 was in there.
Again, the velocity of those passes goes back to the confidence that we've talked about with him. And seeing him have that in AJ may allow something for Julio, because as much as we thought Julio coming in was going to open up stuff for AJ as far as double coverage is concerned, stuff that Corey Davis wasn't going to be able to do for AJ Brown, this may actually turn into a flip side scenario going into this playoff. And even in the next 2 weeks, the Dolphins, the Texans can be favoring AJ, and Julio could be the one that's getting it. Because again, we talked about that out route that AJ caught on that third down. He was double covered on that. You're going to see teams start to angle more towards A.J. Brown as both are healthy. That is where everybody that's been questioning about Julio, what is he worth it? Has everything been worth it? This now, the month of January and the month of February, this is where Julio could potentially shine to show that everything that happened in the offseason is well worth it because of the fact he will be open now.
And if Shane Bowen's defense continues to do what it's doing and improve, and then the rest of those things fall into place, if I'm these other playoff teams, I'm going, And then if you were able to get a Derrick Henry back for a playoff run, I wouldn't want to be in your shoes if you're not a Titan.
Because you know what? Christian Fulton's not going to fall down 3 times in other football games.
Nope.
And I still say one of those was kind of him tripping over Zach Cunningham. Him and Zach Cunningham kind of had a little bit on that.
I know the play you're talking about.
Like one of those was that scenario. Fulton, he's not going to act like that every game.
Hey, it's been fun spending the hour with you, man. Appreciate you doing this with me as we wrap up the Buck Reising program, the Buck Reising show. I appreciate everybody that had phone calls in today on our poll question, and certainly for Brett Batchelor for making the show happen behind the glass. On the way, no Mickey today. He's out. It's birthday for him. Happy birthday, Mickey, if you're listening. Bro. It's Blaine and Lucas on the Blaine and Mickey show. It happens next on your home for Titans football, 104.5 The Zone.